you're in a good place now. You are listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, we're going to be talking about nightly routines, how to create that successful nightly routine to get you in the groove, to create clarity, to alleviate anxiety and stress, and get you ready for the next day. Recently, I created a video on YouTube and social media about morning routines and how to have that successful morning routine to get you in the groove, to get you going, to get everything done, to get those responsibilities, to move forward, to have that motivation, and to feel good. And so today, we want to focus on our nightly routine. It's very important because a lot of times we have that morning routine, we have that work routine, but when we come home, we don't have a routine, we don't have things that we need to get done, and the next morning we're over there thinking, oh my gosh, I didn't get this done, I didn't get that done, the house is a mess, I didn't finish that, I didn't eat when I needed to eat, I didn't go to sleep when I needed to go to sleep. And so I'm feeling worn out, or I'm already feeling as though I could be a lot more productive, and I'm not. So let's talk about that. Let's start thinking about that nightly routine. And I have specific routines in my life. And there was a while back when I had no routines. I didn't agree with routines. I thought routines were humdrum and boring. But now I've realized that routines can actually be helpful. Routines can be our best friends. They can really help us to be more successful, to have more clarity, to have more understanding, to be able to have that ability to get through that long day at work and be able to challenge ourselves to doing more things we need to do, but also feeling better about ourselves, about our achievements, about being consistent with things. And so let's jump in right now. I don't know about you, but I work long hours. I work every day and also on Saturdays. And so with that in mind, there's some things that I got to get done at night that I don't have any other time to do. And I'm sure that many of you know how that is. And one of the things that I do at night is I work out. I work out almost every night. I give myself 2 nights off a week. So 1 night off during the week and 1 night off on one weekend night. And that works out really well for me. So I get home from work. I drop my stuff off at the house. I usually take my dog out for a walk, get him out there for a walk if he didn't come into the office with me. He's become the office dog now, but if I don't take him into the office for some reason, I'll take him on a walk, feed him, take him on a walk. And then I directly go to the gym. And the greatest thing about my situation right now is I actually have a gym in my building because I live in a building. We have a gym. And so I go directly to the gym. And what I often do to make sure that I'm staying the course is that before I leave the office, I change into my gym clothes that I bring with me, put my work clothes in a bag, take those home. And when I get home, so I take the dog out for a walk and I feed him. And when I get upstairs, instead of like sitting there, I know I need to go work out. So I bring my phone, the music, the iPods, whatever you need to be able to listen to your music, or if you're watching some sort of inspirational type video, or you're listening to an audiobook or whatever, make sure to bring that. So we do a couple of things at one time. Not to say that it's not good to be in the moment. There's moments of the workout that we definitely need to feel like we're in the moment, be in the moment, participate in working out. Also, it's good to sometimes learn as well, so we can do 2 things at once, really taking care of some of that time, to take some time to learn and grow on some things that we want to really understand or learn and grow from. So I work out. I make sure that I'm down there for at least 45 minutes working out consistently, normally about an hour. And then that's when I head back upstairs to try to make some dinner, thinking about what I'm going to make. I usually have an idea already. I've gone to the store previously. I like to try to get my shopping done at a maximum of 2 times a week. I don't want to go every day because I don't really have that time, because that starts cutting into my workout routine. Don't have that time after work. So I like to plan ahead and make sure that I have food for the week. And so that's when I really get ready. I start preparing food. I make my food. I eat calmly in a calm fashion. And I know that some of you say, hey, that's one of the things that I don't do. I stand up in the kitchen and eat. And that's something I try not to do. And I know that it can be hard for some of us when we're on the go or we're on our own. and you don't have the family dynamic to sit with, but we do want to sit down and try to eat, try to relax, get some relaxation time in. And then after that, I try to figure out what I need to do before I'm going to grab a seat and either maybe watch something or listen to some music or read. I like to organize my house. So everything that I took from the office, I need to organize. Any of my work clothes that I need to wash or take care of, I take care of that. My workout clothes, I wash that and take care of that. And that can be very helpful because we're already on top of things. So for the next day, we got everything we need. We don't have things laying around. We've prepared our workout clothes for the next day. I like to put things in a bag so that I can take that to work and do the same thing again. It's just consistency. It's rinse and repeat, and it works out very well. I also like to try to figure out if there's any text messaging and communication that I missed out on, and usually there always is. Can't take care of everything, so you have to prioritize. And also you want to limit yourself, because sometimes when we get home at that point in time, I don't want to be on the phone all night. I'm just not going to be, because I want to have some downtime. I want to have some clarity and some mindfulness. And so I'll respond back as much as I can within 35 to 40 minutes. And then I let go of that phone for a little while and I participate in something that I want to do to have some downtime that makes me feel better, that gives me clarity, and that just kind of allows me to think or do what I want to do instead of focusing on work or communication. When we're able to create this type of routine, we get to that point where we're just consistency is key. And we're going to talk about some of the things that get in the way of our routine later on in the hour. We're going to talk about some things that maybe we could implement. Also, some of the pitfalls, because a lot of times we don't realize there's some pitfalls here, and we need to think about what are the things that we need to be aware of. What are the things that we need to be consistent with? A lot of people come to me when we are talking about these types of things, and they said, hey, I really want to do this, or I want to wake up early, or I want to, wake up and work out in the morning. And I said, that's great, but we got to do everything consistent, and we have to start slowly. Starting slowly is key. We want to start slowly. So if we want to work out in the morning and we want to get up 2 hours earlier, let's say, that's great. That's a great idea. It's a great goal. It's great goals, but we want to separate those goals into two. We can't just all of a sudden start working out every morning and getting up 2 hours early. It's not going to probably happen. So we want to slowly rev into that. So if we want to start getting up 2 hours earlier, let's start getting up 30 minutes earlier, or let's start getting up an hour earlier. And let's kind of, work up to that 2 hour change. A lot of times people want to change so quickly, but it's really hard to sustain that. It's like losing a lot of weight all at one time instead of doing it, practically and really aware of how to lose weight and being able to eat properly and that sort of thing. Because if we're losing weight and we're not eating properly, when we start eating properly, we're going to gain weight. We're going to feel bad about ourselves. We're going to get down on the process, that sort of thing. So I don't want you to get down on the process. I want you to feel good about this. And a lot of people come to me that have attention deficit disorder or attention deficit hyper disorder, and they're needing to get these things settled. They need to get these schedules, because having a routine and being on a schedule is not only practical, but it's smart. It's smart. And the most successful people in the world have a schedule. They have a regiment. They stick to it. They're good with that. And they've learned that this is good for me. It's solid for me. And it keeps me where I need to be at. What I like to do when we go back to the schedule concept is, I've reached out, I've had some of that communication. Now at this point, I like to do another walk with the dog, and you might have multiple dogs you have to walk, what have you. Or if it's a cat, you spend time with the cat playing and having that interaction. And it's always great, because interacting with the pet is so awesome, because it is our family member. It's our furry family member, and they're really happy to see you. So spending that extra time and making sure that they're taken care of accordingly and that they feel good. And that's so powerful. Another thing that I like to do too is I like to set my alarms in the morning. I always like to set my alarms in the morning. And since I'm trying to take a little bit of break from technology at a certain time when I get home, I like to plug my phone in by the bed. I set my alarms on my phone. That gets me up. I set 2 alarms actually. And it's powerful for me because I get that out of the way. I don't have to worry about it. The phone's charging. It is where it needs to be at. I like to get my water bottle set up, get my water, get everything I need by my bed so I don't have to worry about that later. And then I can kind of relax and just chill out. Looking a little bit over the next day's agenda, understanding what the schedule looks like, understanding the meetings that I need to be in, getting my head wrapped around that type of stuff. Because that can be powerful too, because we want to think about the next day and really, analyze that, because that can be helpful, because that can put us in the right mindset and in the right place that we need to be at. And then I like to just decompress. So I like to read a book maybe, and I don't time it, but I give myself a certain amount of time. And that's when I proceed to try to relax, because I always turn off. I don't ever look at an iPad in bed. I don't like to look at my computer in bed. I just don't like to do that. And occasionally you have to send out an emergency email before you go to bed. And it's unfortunate sometimes, because that light, that type of light that's on the iPad, that's on the computer, it can be very hard to create, the way we need to be at fundamentally before sleeping. So be aware of that. If you're using technology before you go to bed, you're laying there looking at an iPad, make sure that you're using maybe on the night mode. Really think about that, because that can get really in the way of your sleeping. And so if you're using technology at night and you're having trouble sleeping, this could be something that we need to be aware of. This could be something that is impeding our ability to sleep. Also, I found too, if we're on the phone a lot, we're calling, making lots of calls, talking, chatting, a call here and there is great, but right before bed, we really need to be getting ready for bed, getting ready to relax, processing that. And that's where we need to be at. That's so powerful. And that's where we need to be at mentally and emotionally and physically, because otherwise we're trying to calm down, right? It's very hard to, be communicative and talkative and outgoing and all that stuff, and then get right ready for bed and turn it off. So we want to really establish that peacefulness. We want to establish that contentness, and that's powerful. So we want to get to that point. And usually we want to also make sure that we're finding the right space, the right time, basically, for us to be going to bed and getting up. And that's what we're going to be talking about in the next segment here in our podcast and radio show is, the AM, PM thing. What time are we getting up and what time are we going to bed? And this is very important. This is not one size fits all. Not one size fits all, but we do need to try to get as much sleep as possible. We want to try to get as much relaxation as possible to be able to relax for our body, for our mind, for our clarity, for our spirit. All those things are very important. So we need to start thinking about what is the best time for you to be getting up. What is the best time for you to be going to bed? And, sometimes we aren't able to really decide what time we need to get up because we have work responsibilities. We have to be there at a certain time. So sometimes we have to get up when we have to get up. And that means we really need to think about what time do we need to go to bed so that we feel refreshed. And that can be really a trial and error there. And we're going to talk about that when I return. We're going to be talking more about the pitfalls and things to avoid as well when we're creating the schedule, so that we can really understand what we need to do. Because remember, we can figure this out, but it has to be tailored to us. It has to be tailored. So stay tuned. Live Your True Life Perspectives. With me, your host, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
Turn it up and jump in the deep end on Perspectives. Now, here's Ashley.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, we're discussing our nightly routine, a successful nightly routine to give us clarity for the following day, to be able to relax, to be successful, to feel good, to have that mindfulness. And I created a video that's on YouTube about a morning routine, and I decided, definitely want to put out a podcast or radio show on that nightly routine, and this can benefit anybody. If you do deal with attention deficit disorder or attention deficit hyper disorder, this is going to definitely benefit you quite a bit, but everybody benefits from being on a schedule and having a routine, And right before the break, I was talking about my routine and the routine that I go through and how I walk through that routine. And we kind of got to the point of getting ready to go to bed after setting that alarm and processing that and turning off the devices. And I think that's powerful, is that we have to really watch out when we're using technology before we go to bed that can get in the way of our sleep. And realizing that is so important. I'm actually trying out some new gadgets now that are going to help you with stress and anxiety, and I will be reporting back on that here in the next few weeks. And if I find something that I really, really think is great, I'll be also promoting that as well, because I think that's very important to find things that can help us to regulate stress and to help us as well. So let's dive into the AM PM situation, when we're getting up and when we're going to bed. Some of you out there are able to make that decision on both sides. You don't have to be at work at a certain time. You're able to make that decision. And that's great. That's awesome. But some of you out there, that's just not possible. You got to be at work at a certain time. You got to be there. So you got to get up at a certain time to be able to get there. Or you got to get up at a certain time to be at your desk or at your computer in your own home office. But you got to do a certain time. So if that's the case, we need to make sure that we get up in time to be able to get ready and not be completely rushing and stressed out. But we got to get enough sleep, and we got to figure out what that sleep looks like. What's the best for us? It's not one size fits all. Some people can sleep less, but I do think that at least a minimum of 7 hours sleep is perfect. 7 hours, you can really get a lot of clarity. You can feel good. You wake up refreshed. Some people can do 6. Some people need 8. Some people need 9. You need to think about what is practical for you. And so I like to look at, okay, if I have to be up at a certain time, and I get up at the same time every morning now, I go to bed pretty much the same time every night now. Even if I get to get up a little later or I have to get up a little earlier, I try to stay consistent. Because when we start changing that time, it really does do a lot to us physically that we might not be aware of. We're going to feel sluggish. We're going to feel tired. It's going to be a long day. Sometimes you might oversleep. So that's also something to take into consideration. But I like to go to bed at a certain time. I usually go for about 7.5 to 8.5 hours. Usually about 8 is my sweet spot. I've tried all of it. I've tried 6. I've tried 6.5. I've tried 7. But you need to think about what is best for you and try it out. Try it out. Figure out what's best. But you have to really trial by error, because there'll be times when you think, wow, this is perfect. Other times it's not enough, what have you. And so it's very important to really analyze that. And so taking that time to figure that out, that can take a lot of trial and error. So what is that? What time does that look like? And also, if you're having to go to bed at a decent time early enough to get that 7 or 8 hours, it might be challenging to be able to get some sleep. So we might have to work with maybe some meditation or maybe some devices that help with stress. Maybe just being able to calmly read or doing some breathing exercises can be very helpful as well. So all of these are very powerful things that we can implement into that nightly routine to feel refreshed and to have clarity the next day. When I return, I'll be talking more about this routine and things that we need to think about, some pitfalls involved, and some other things that you might want to add in that you haven't thought about adding in. So this will be helpful. It's going to really get us on the right track and get us ready for the next day. Stay tuned. Live your true life perspectives. With me, your host, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. Well, I'll be back this time, you know it, in 2 shakes.
This is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, we've been talking about that nightly routine, having that nightly routine that works for you. It's so important to be able to wake up, to feel refreshed, to feel good, to feel like you've gotten enough sleep, and to know that you got done what you needed to get done the night before because you feel good the next day. It allows you to really put that energy and time and focus into what you're doing on the day instead of the things that you missed out the night before. One of the biggest things we were talking about right before the break is the AM, PM. What time do you need to get up And what time do you need to get to bed to get the proper sleep so that you feel very good, that you feel healthy, that you feel clarity, that you feel successful, that you feel motivated. And this is very much not one size fits all. This is a very unique concept, and you're going to probably have to try to figure that out, what that looks like. And I'm not just talking about the number of hours that you're sleeping. I'm also talking about what time. Sometimes some people need to be in bed by a certain time. I prefer to be in bed by 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock works great for me. Sometimes 10:30. Sometimes, but it's right in that sweet spot. And that seems to work really well for me. And I can't do it every night. On the weekends, I don't do it every single night, but I do it about 95% of the time. And it makes me feel really good. I wake up refreshed. I got to get up at the same time every morning. Now, I don't do it every single weekend. Sometimes I don't have to be up at 7 a.m. So I try to be as consistent as possible, but even if I have to get up later, I don't have to get up early and I can get up later on the weekends. I try to get up within an hour of my normal wake-up time during the week because I don't want to get so far off base on my schedule that when Monday morning comes around, I'm feeling really beat down. And that normally happens for a lot of people that, they feel beat down. And sometimes one of the ways that you can offset that is maybe you get up later on Saturday, and you have your Saturday as kind of your cheat, your cheat day, cheat night. And then back on Sunday, you wake up on Sunday at a certain time. That can be very helpful. And so a lot of people can work with that too as well. But during the week, we want to be consistent. We want to be consistent in our time. We want to really think about our time. We want to be consistent in that timing. And that's powerful for us. We need to also think about, besides just the scheduling, what are some things that we want to implement into the schedule that we want to do? What are some things in that nightly routine that we didn't get done during the day that needs to be implemented as well? Let's think about those things. Whether it's communicating with other people that you need to communicate with. Maybe there's a class that you would like to take or need to take. These are very, thinking about this, very individualized aspects of all of our schedules that we need to incorporate when we're thinking of our nightly routine. Many of us can't change the time that we get off work, so we have to work within those guidelines. And some of us can, but we have to figure out what we can do to make those augmentations and changes. And I feel like also one of the biggest keys is that if you have family members in the home, if they're participating on a schedule, that is very healthy and helpful for the rest. Because when I'm participating in something and I'm really caring about what time I'm getting up and I'm working at being successful and organized and having that clarity and working with a successful routine, it's really good to have the other people that are there, so your husband or your wife, on a routine as well. It doesn't have to be the exact same routine, but we need to be on a routine and being consistent, because I feel like it's hard when you're trying to really work on yourself and you're trying to get better and you're trying to have that clarity and you're trying to be solid. You really want to see other people doing that same thing. You want to see other people doing the same thing because it really gets you to do it. It really connects the dots with what you're doing. And it also feels good because there's some reinforcement there. There's reinforcement. There's other people that are operating at that same success level. There are other people that also want to do that. Doesn't have to be the exact same thing, but other people are working to that level of success to make their life better. It's kind of the concept of if you want to quit smoking and you quit smoking, but your spouse is still smoking in the house and what have you, it's going to be very hard to stay true to that. It's going to be very hard to not smoke cigarettes. It's going to be very challenging, almost impossible when you don't have some sort of support system. Now, I know some of you say, hey, I can do anything, and if somebody else doesn't want to see me succeed, I can even succeed even more. And I get that, but I think that when we have a support system and we have other people that are at that same level and doing those same types of things, it can be extremely helpful for us. So let's go back down this nightly routine and kind of break it down a little bit. The workout to me is so important at night because I don't have time to do it during the day. I also do a really tough workout where I do get a little sleepy, so I prefer to do that at night. The best part about the workout is the downtime. The best part about the workout is helping myself, doing something to better myself, doing something that I need to do that's good for me. So that is my personal time. That's, that personal care, that self-care that we all need to do. And it makes me feel better about myself. And it also shows me, my inner me, that I actually care about doing something for myself. The eating process. I know that some of you forgo eating, and I understand that some of you are on a diet or you don't want to eat. But eating is so very important, and eating something that's healthy. I'm very adamant about healthy eating. I like to eat a lot of vegetables at night. I like to eat a lot of vegetables. I like to eat salads at night. I like to eat light, so I'm not doing a lot of digestion. I personally don't eat red meat and certain meats. So it's not an argument one way or another. I just don't. It's not my thing because I've actually really recognized what food is best for my body and what food I digest best. And these are very important aspects as well. And so thinking about that too, what food goes well with you at night? What food really helps you at night? And really connects with you. Because think about that. When you're laying in bed, you really know when you've eaten something that you didn't need to eat. You really know when you're having trouble digesting something. You really know when something has just not felt good and it's harsh and it's challenging. And so the lighter we eat, I'm not saying eat tiny bits or sparsely, just the lighter we eat, the better we normally sleep. So thinking about that, I like vegetables. I really like to eat vegetables. It's very good. I also think, I'm not condemning alcohol at all, but if you are drinking alcohol, really look at the amount that you're drinking and really limit that down because alcohol does it can contribute to sleepless nights. It can contribute to tossing and turning. There's a certain amount that you can drink, and then there's a certain amount where we're not getting very good sleep. And so if you're having a glass of wine, that's great, but if we're overindulging in alcohol, we probably need to look at that because we're probably waking up feeling pretty beat down. We're probably waking up pretty tired, needing to drink quite a bit of coffee or other things to keep awake. And so that can be challenging. So being aware of that, what are we doing to our body? Also, what's our stress level? Many of us have stressful jobs. What's the stress level? What are you dealing with? And how are you dealing with that stress? If you're just coming home and just, filling your face and eating and drinking as much as possible to try to deal with that stress, that's probably not a healthy response. We need to look at that response and say, hey, what can I do to begin to augment that stress response? What is your stress response? Some of us, stress response is eating. Some of us, drinking alcohol, maybe smoking cigarettes or smoking weed. Thinking about these things. What are we doing? Is this a healthy choice? How much of this is good? How much of this is not good? And, we have to look at it. Can you moderate? Can you not? And I'm not advocating any of this. I'm just saying, I'm just being honest and I'm being transparent. I think many people, to some degree, augment their stress with either food or alcohol or weed or cigarettes or that sort of thing. And that might not be the healthiest avenue, right? So I'm not condemning anybody. I'm just saying, hey, it might not be the healthiest avenue. Let's try to figure out how we can maybe augment that. And so start being aware of your consumption. I advocate having a journal, like a journal like with the days of the week, for example, having that calendar and having, how much maybe at the end, how much you worked out that night, what was your workout, maybe some calories, how many calories you burned, what did you do? I like to do a lot of cardio. If you ate, what did you eat? If you drank, how many glasses of wine did you have, or what did you have? If you smoke cigarettes, how many cigarettes? It's like start being aware, and we can start cutting down on some of those things to make ourselves, healthier. These little small things can go a long way. And when we begin to understand our stress response and how we respond to stress, we can change those from unhealthy ways to healthy ways. And having the schedule is really going to help you too, because once you created this routine and this schedule, it really takes some of the stress off you and you get into that routine and it becomes a very successful routine. Now, walking is very helpful. So many of you have a dog that needs to be walked. The dog needs to be walked. Dogs love walks. So taking that walk and making sure we're out there long enough. We don't have to be out there forever, but I like, 20-minute walk is a good 20-minute walk. Get out there, get going. Have some fun with the dog. That'll also help with the stress level as well, walking it off. That can be very valuable. I also like the fact that when I get home, kind of organizing my stuff. So after I work out and after I eat, organizing my items for the next day, getting my stuff together. If I want to bring the workout clothes to my office, so I have it, get that ready. If I need to have other things at the office that day, prepare that. Organize this stuff so that I'm not having to do that and race around in my morning. Why put all that stress and anxiety on you in the morning when you can take care of it at night in a calm fashion? I also like the idea of being able to communicate with friends and family, but doing it for a certain amount of time and then putting the phone up. I feel like many of us are constantly on that phone. We get home from work, we're trying to respond back to everybody. It's overwhelming, it's stressful, we're anxious, we got all the stuff we got to take care of, and it's just too much because there's just too much that needs to be put into all that. So taking care of the things that are really, really necessary to take care of, that you got to get done, taking care of some folks that you haven't been able to communicate with, that's very powerful, and being able to be consistent in that. And, some other folks you might have to message and say, hey, I'm going to have to get back to you tomorrow night. I don't have enough time. I'll get back with you. And as long as somebody knows that you're paying attention or that they communicated with you and you actually care to communicate with them, that's powerful. That's even though you might not be able to communicate with them at this time, reaching out to them and letting them know that you will reach out to them is good. Now, if somebody has an issue with that, that might be a control issue that we need to look into a little bit more. If you're feeling like you have to, like you can't say no to somebody or you can't tell them the next day, we really need to start analyzing our boundaries a little bit to understand our boundaries a little bit more and making sure that we have consistent boundaries with people. And that might be something to look into too, is that how much of you are you giving away? How sleepy and exhausted are you on a daily basis? How does this make you feel? And that can be challenging because a lot of times we might not have boundaries with people. And so we might get exhausted at night because we're having to make calls and call people back and doing that. But really think about how much time do you want to allot to that? Think about that. Connect with that and think about how that looks like. What's the best for you? And I think it's great when you can reach out to people and communicate and have, thoughtful conversations. You're not going to be able to do that with everybody in one night, but you'll be able to really connect those dots. The other thing that's important too is that we want to make sure that we're hydrated. We want to make sure that we're hydrated. We want to make sure that we feel good. Hydration is so important. So after we're eating, and we want to always have water. We want to drink as much water as possible. We want to be able to have that water intake and be able to understand that and figure out what that water intake is for us to be able to be healthy, to be able to connect the dots with that. And I like to drink like 16 to 20 ounces before I go to bed. And I know some people say, well, what about the bathroom factor? I take the risk. And in that factor, I take the risk and I deal with that. But it's a very valuable thing for me. And I think that it will help you in your routine. It'll help you to feel healthier, to be hydrated. And that's something that's important that I think a lot of people don't think about on their day-to-day routine. A lot of people don't think about the impact that has on their health. And that's something that we definitely need to add into that regimen, into that routine, and think about having that on a night-to-night basis. One of the other things that I wanted to capitalize on is the devices. We talked a little bit about that, but we definitely wanted to turn off those devices. We want to be sure that we're getting as much relaxation time, as much clarity and understanding, as much of what we need to really understand the situation for what it is, and then to be able to understand that we can't have all that technology and try to get some rest. We're going to have to be able to shut it down. We're going to need to shut it down, and we're going to need to figure out what time of night we need to do that. And many of you have learned the hard way with this because you've been on technology, you've been doing it, and then all of a sudden, guess what? You can't sleep. You're stuck. You're up for hours. wow, I can't sleep. I got to get to work in the morning. I got this long day ahead of me. I'm really stressed. I'm overwhelmed. And that's the last thing that I want you to feel. So you're going to have to start thinking, if you are reading a book on a Kindle or something like that, you probably have the night mode. That probably works. But make sure that's not impeding on your sleep later. And we're going to have to look at those. Those are things that we can play with and augment over time. So stay tuned. I got more things to talk about, a couple of more golden tips, and live your true life perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. Don't turn the channel. We'll be back this time. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
Get in here. You're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, we've been talking about having that nightly routine, having that routine that will give us success and clarity and more mental and emotional clarity to go through our day-to-day life. And, we were talking before the break about, the stress responses and understanding those types of things, and those things can be so powerful for us to understand. Many times we have a tendency of overeating, over-drinking, smoking, what have you, to overcome some of that stress. And we need to really be aware of that and understand that. And that can really help us to feel better, to feel more at rest and more at peace. And so really right now, I want you to think about, what are some of the things that you can change in your nightly routine that can allow you to have a greater sense of self? What are some of the things in your nightly routine that we can add to that'll make your day easier? What are some responsibilities that we need to take care of that we haven't really been able to take care of that would be really helpful if we could knock it out at night, be consistent with it, do that on a constant basis? What can we do to make your life easier? And I think this is really a powerful stance for us to be at, to understand that, to recognize that, to live by that. And that's where I want us to be. And I want you to think about that. When you're getting home, what are some things that you can do? What are some things that we can do maybe on the weekend instead of putting it right after the workday that we can actually work on? What are some things that we can get done? And, the grocery shopping is important. And I know that many of you say, oh, I'm using DoorDash or I'm using Uber Eats. And I understand that. That gets really costly. And we're also not able to understand all the ingredients and that sort of thing that goes into it. One of my recommendations, and this is something really simple, is I like to go to the grocery store on the weekend. I work on Saturdays, but I like to go in the grocery store on the weekend on Sundays, get everything I need to get as much as I can for the week, really, really figure that out and think about what that looks like. What am I wanting to eat at night? What am I wanting to bring to work during the day as well? What are some things that I need to get and take care of so I don't have to worry about that later? When it comes to when you get home, what are some things that I can do to, decompress? What are some of those things that I can do to de-stress my life? And how do I do that? And having that fundamentally there. I also like, having a good book and having something that I can read. I've really gotten to the point of really limiting, the TV type component at night. I've really gotten to the point where I'm limiting the amount of TV exposure. And I'm not advocating that for everybody, but what I'm saying is that this is very important to get to, because I think that we can really clear our head when we're having that ability to think clearly, not always having an intaking programs. We can actually take some of this and put it into practice. There might be a show that you like, and that's great, but let's limit it down to 1 show or 2 shows and limit the amount of TV exposure and how much we're watching, and put that into a timeline for ourselves that makes sense and has a healthy timeline. So if you want to watch a show and you're watching a show, that's great. Let's put a timer on that, maybe 1 hour. And I know that that's challenging for some people. We're going to have to really work at that. But 1 hour of TV at night could be good, because that'll fit into your schedule. I prefer not to have any, because I don't have enough time. Otherwise, I would have more time to do those things, but I really want to walk with the dog. I really want to work out. I really want to eat. So those are my priorities. And I know that's not everybody's priorities, but I think that we need to think about, what are those healthy priorities that we can put forward in our routine? What are those healthy priorities that we can do that can really help us to understand where we want to be at and where our value system is? And I think that's powerful, and I think that actually aligns with our values. It also helps us create boundaries, healthy boundaries with our relatives, with our friends, with our family, with the folks that live with us, with our friends, with our work. There comes a time where we have to shut down work. And I usually try to shut down before 8 o'clock at night. I'd like to do it earlier. I'm working to try to edge that to 7 p.m. so I can get home and work out before 8 o'clock. That's something I'm really working at. And some of us are, we really need to watch that. We need to really watch the work schedule, and we need to be consistent on that. We can't change everything overnight, but we can slowly change small things and augment small things to work to our advantage. And this is very powerful. And this is something that I want you to think about. What are some things you can do? Maybe it's looking at that schedule. What time are you getting home from work? What are the things that you're doing? Is there a way of maybe leaving earlier, perhaps for work, instead of getting home as late at night? Thinking about those things as far as a quality of life is concerned. If you haven't already, check out my YouTube channel. Go to YouTube and search up Ashley Burgess. Ashley, Berges. Find content. We put up content every single week, new video content. The concept of the morning routine is on there. A lot of relationship understanding, psychology understanding, and the list goes on. I'm so glad that you tuned in. Please share this show with any family and friends or work colleagues or buddies that need to hear this, because this really helps us to be more successful, and it helps us to not have to worry about the things that we already have a routine for. Very powerful stuff. So stay tuned. We have a show coming up next. Check out the podcast as well, and live your true life perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess. I'll be back this time in 3 shakes.